Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Money Compass podcast. You have come to the right place if you are looking for critical advice on ways to help guide your direction toward a healthy financial future. I'm your host, Christina Pullman with Penn State Extension. I'm an extension educator leading our statewide financial literacy efforts, and I'm thankful to be joined by my co-host, Brady Ward. I'll let you introduce yourself, Brady.
Yep, my name's Brady Ward, and I am currently going into my junior year at Penn State main campus, and I am studying finance and accounting there.
Great. Thanks, Brady. Today's topic is all about budgeting, the essential piece to financial stability. A popular finance expert and author, Dave Ramsey, says a budget is telling your money where to go, not wondering where it went. So, where do we start, and how can we use budgeting to help us on our journey to financial wellness? We hope to leave you with some of those answers today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode as we share the best practices from our guests. We are being joined today by two of my fellow Penn State colleagues, Dr. Maureen Ittig and Daniel Brent. I'll let you both share a little bit about yourselves. Maureen, would you like to start?
Sure. So I am also an extension educator on the family well-being team. I am based in Southwest Pennsylvania, and where we do programs not just on financial literacy, but about mental health and well-being, parenting, and lots of other topics, trying to help all of us improve our lives using research and science.
Excellent. Danny?
Yeah, I'm an associate professor at Penn State in the Department of Agricultural Economics, Sociology, and Education. I'm an economist by training, and I do research on financial literacy, how it relates to other outcomes, including student outcomes and student debt. And I also teach a personal finance class at Penn State University Park.
Wonderful. Well, we're really excited to have you both with us today. I am going to turn this over to Brady for our question and answer part of today's episode.
Yes, thank you so much, Christina. So, Maureen, can you share about challenges people or farmers face in managing their finances?
I think one of the challenges is this idea about trying to figure out where our money can go and have our money work for us. I think that's a universal. For in rural communities, there can be additional challenges. One of them is that it's only recently that in Pennsylvania we've had financial literacy requirements in school. So in a lot of communities, a lot of financial literacy information is information that you either learned within your family or that there were community resources where you could turn to for trusted advice, like brick and mortar banks. But starting around 2012, there was a lot of closings. About 40% of rural counties lost bank branches and created bank deserts where folks had to travel further in order to get trusted financial advice. And also, many of those communities did not have strong access to the online banking tools and financial tools that were coming up. So in rural communities, we see folks that are struggling and balancing those budgets and trying to balance their family needs and their business needs, especially with a small business or a family farm. And in addition, maybe more vulnerable to things like predatory lending or financial scams, in part because there might be a lack of trusted advisors based in the community that folks feel comfortable turning to.
Thank you so much. So you'd say there's a little bit of a lack of resources and education going towards financial literacy and being able to access those resources, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And so, Danny, what does a budget mean to you when you think and you hear the word budget being thrown around?
I think a budget really means two main things to me. First, it sets your priorities, and I think one of the challenges of making a budget. It actually forces you to confront what's important in your life, where you want to be putting your hard-earned resources. And it also confronts sort of in some way like your discipline and sticking to it. So you can set a budget and allocate different categories that meet your needs, but then you actually have to make sure that you're sticking to it, sort of check that your spending actually matches what you've assigned to. So I think that like these two elements of setting your priorities and then having the discipline to track it and make sure that you're sticking to your plan are like the main elements of having a budget.
Yeah, so those main elements that you spoke about, how can creating this budget and having those elements and having that discipline make an individual or farmer make better decisions about spending, saving, and investing?
Well, one is you're thinking a little bit more about your priorities. So again, there's a general rule in personal finance that you sort of want to pay yourself first. And that means that, one of your top priorities should be allocating money either towards an emergency fund or, retirement or other sort of major purchases, paying down debt. So if you set those as your priorities, you're not just going to wait until all of your other spending is done and then whatever left over go to sort of these higher priority goals. And then the other element is, through this process of tracking and checking to see if you're sticking with your budget, you may realize that you're spending a lot of money on categories that are not actually that important to you. And it's always difficult to rein back spending. But I think that once you go and track everything, and figure out, you're amazed at how much money you're spending on Amazon or some of these other categories that maybe aren't your highest priorities. You can think about a strategy to rein in that type of spending and make sure you're meeting your highest priority goals first.
So you would say being able to not only just set up the budget, but also being able to adjust and see where you can change your spending is really important as well, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I think a big part of having a budget is, first of all, it confronts you to actually figure out where you're currently spending your money and how that's different from where you want to be spending your money.
Thank you so much. And Maureen, what does a budget mean to you?
I think that a budget it is a tool. It's a tool that allows us to reach our goals. It's also a communication tool. So if we are, especially with a family budget, if we have a family farm, we have different family goals about what it is that we want to do. Maybe we've got some home repairs we're working towards. Maybe there's educational goals that we have. Having a budget allows us to look at what's coming in and what's coming out in the short term and have conversations with ourselves and with others. And a lot of times within families, especially families with a small business or a farm, you may see one person be in charge of the business finances and one in charge of the family finances and getting the taxes paid and being in charge of the clothing and the automobiles versus the vehicles for the business. And the finances are intertwined. And so having a budget allows us to sit down at the kitchen table with the folks that we depend on and that we want to mutually support to have better conversations about how we together can move forward to address our needs and reach our goals.
So budgeting is a tool like you mentioned, but are there any tools or methods that help you create or maintain a budget?
So there are lots of great tools out there. And one that we have with Penn State Extension is the Build a Budget book. And this is a really useful workbook that is good for those conversations that we just mentioned with ourselves and with others. And there are other tools, though, that are out there. There are a lot of apps that are out there these days in terms of things that we can pay for or not pay for that you can explore. There are tools we talk about sometimes the envelope method, where folks take their money for the month or for the week, for the paycheck period, and organize it by different envelopes based on whether there's a savings envelope, an electric bill envelope. So there's lots of great tools and methods out there, and it helps to experiment, particularly with the free ones first, before looking into the ones that might have a subscription to see what might work for you.
So it's all about experimenting and seeing what you like and what helps you stick to creating and maintaining that budget. So Danny, how does having a budget help you achieve your financial goals?
So I think that having a budget, again, just forces some decision making, particularly if you're in, as Maureen mentioned, like a family, or you're making decisions collectively about where your money is going. And, I also think that in addition to budgeting, having some, automatic saving rules, whether that's, if you're in you have like an employer, a lot of this may be a bit easier where there's a certain amount of your paycheck that automatically goes to retirement. But if you own your own business or have a family farm, that budgeting process may be more important to set aside money towards longer term financial goals. And yeah, I think a budget just helps clarify where that money needs to be coming from, and making sure that you're allocating, again, highest priority needs first.
So Maureen, we spoke a lot about how a budget can help and what tools we can use to make it most successful. But what obstacles can we come across when trying to stick to a budget?
I think one obstacle that comes to sticking to a budget is, like any new routine, is building this into your lifestyle and on a regular basis, whatever works for you. For some folks, this might be monthly. For some folks, this might be weekly. If folks are going to have different schedules, but in some way, sticking to some sort of routine where you're able to look at what money is coming in and what money is going out, so you can see that your money is working for you. I think another big obstacle can be relationships. If once again, if within a family, if you are sharing finances, if you're responsible for someone else and their financial well-being, seeing, do we both have the same picture for what we want our retirement to look like? Do we both have the same picture about what are repairs that need to be prioritized, or what kind of vacation we want? Um, so these are things that sometimes can get in the way of our reaching our financial goals, even more so than financial challenges like an unexpected loss or an unexpected financial demand.
So one thing is definitely aligning your goals and trying to make sure they're mostly aligned with your partner or whoever you're forming a budget with, which falls back to our first episode, creating financial goals and all about goal setting. So Danny, what strategies are helpful to ensure financial stability for individuals who have irregular income or for farmers during their off season?
Yeah, so this is a real challenge of having sort of irregular, inconsistent income, and I do think a budget plays a role here too. So most people may think of a budget as really allocating sort of their monthly income to different spending categories, and they may have some differences in their expenses, like they may have to car repair, or have to pay for summer camps, or daycare in certain months, but not others. But the revenue side or your income side is the same. When your income is more inconsistent or lumpier, I think it is important to have that long-term plan, and also probably just create some buffers. So everyone may know about an emergency savings. So this is the idea that you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up, and if you have irregular income, you may want sort of another account that's devoted to maintaining your sort of everyday living expenses that you build up when you have higher income than expected and you draw down when you have lower income than expected. But making sure that you dedicate that and ideally putting it in some type of account that's safe, but also works for you. So like a money market account or a high yield savings account would be a great way to put that money during times when your income is higher, and be able to spend it down when your income is lower. And when you have a budget and you have an idea of what your expenses are, that will also help to sort of assign the right amount of money during your sort of high income periods. It could be after harvest for farmers, and make sure that you do have this bundle of money or an account that's specifically devoted to meeting your expenses. And ideally, that's something separate from like a true emergency savings fund.
So a budget can be a tool, no matter what your income looks like, to really help anyone achieve their financial goals. And so, Danny, last question for you. Can you share your best tip for budgeting and additional resources to support people in managing their finances better?
Yeah, so I have found that some apps are helpful. We just have a lot of different spending in different categories, and our spending is also pretty lumpy. We have some big expenses that only occur at different times, and figuring out how to plan for those and allocate that over the course of sort of a year is difficult. And then I think the hard part, which is still a work in progress for, my own family, is just making sure that you're continuing to have those conversations, which can sometimes be unpleasant or challenging, when you're not you're not actually sticking to the budget that you've planned. So, like, I view a budget as not a one-time process where you set your budget and then you forget about it and move on, but you have to keep on revisiting it as your needs change, your income grows or shrinks, you have different expenses, different goals, and then just make sure that you're consistently sticking to it. So we haven't always been great about this, but what I recommend is sort of like a weekly check-in, so that you have all this data generated by the apps. You see where the money is going. You see, whether you're actually sticking to your plan, and whether the plan needs to be adjusted. And I think this is important for any type of financial planning, is that, having a static plan that doesn't change at all, it's just not really that helpful or realistic. And so being able to adapt and revise and update is an important part of the of personal finance, the financial planning process, and definitely with respect to budgets.
Thank you so much. That's perfect, Danny. And Maureen, can you share your best tip or any additional resources to support people in managing their finances?
I think my first tip is you can do it. This is something that this is not something that requires a PhD. This isn't something that requires an accounting degree. We can cook, we can learn new skills, and we can manage our budgets. Penn State Extension, our financial wellness team, and we have a wealth of financial literacy resources. We also have an office in every county. So this is something where the educators are on the Penn State Extension financial literacy team are here for folks across Pennsylvania as they're looking for programs and looking for resources. Similarly, Sokolov Miller has wonderful and free resources for folks to explore things. So Danny earlier mentioned, thinking about high yield savings accounts, or folks trying to understand the power of compound interest, maybe terms that weren't part of our everyday around the kitchen table conversations when we were growing up, and figuring out some of those opportunities for managing our money, exploring whether it's how do I manage daycare costs to how do I help my child go to college, how do I start saving for a home. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also has a wide range of resources that can help us for specific financial goals, but also certain times. So there's certain times of year when it might lend itself to reviewing our budget. So if we're thinking about we're preparing for taxes, we're looking at our income in the past, maybe we're thinking about changing our health insurance this year. And so maybe we're looking at our healthcare spending. Having that budget can help us look into those, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has some resources for those kinds of look backs as we're from our budgets for how we can move forward.
Thank you so much, Maureen. And I'm going to turn it back to Christina to close our podcast for today.
All right. Well, thank you both. You've really given us some excellent insight into the importance of budgeting and just recognizing that we need to be more intentional about maintaining a budget to help us reach our financial priorities and create pathways toward our goals. We heard that there are a lot of resources out there to help us stay on track and direct our money to where it counts. So we encourage folks to do your research on which app, which tool will work best for you, and make budgeting a part of your daily routine and check-in. So in closing, we encourage you to check out Penn State Extension. As Maureen mentioned, we have lots of information on financial literacy and many other topics. We provide articles, we have webinars, workshops on many things, including financial wellness. So you could find us at extension.psu.edu. And Brady, where can they find Penn State's Financial Literacy Center, Sokolov Miller?
Yeah, you can find the Sokolov Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center at financialliteracy.psu.edu, and we have tons of resources. As mentioned, even a Excel budgeting tool that is free for any use and can just be downloaded at our website.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all of you for joining us today. Thank you to our guests. We encourage you to check us out again on the next episode of The Money Compass.